The Catholic Church announced today that they have a new pope, Leo the 14th, first American pope from Chicago. And it's a great day for the Catholic Church, the institution of the church. It's a time of celebration. But our experience of the church, whether we're Catholics or Methodists or Presbyterians, Anglicans, our experience of the institutional churches isn't always great. And sometimes we can get very discouraged. We see the behavior of church leaders, church members, and it's less than what it should be. And we begin to question what's going on. Is our faith failing? Is it not the redemption that we hoped it would be? And it causes us to re-examine our faith. Where is our faith? What is our faith in? Is it in church leaders? Is it in the church itself? It needs to be in Christ. And I wanted to take some time to look at the fundamentals of our faith, to pick it apart a bit, to look at the anatomy of the gospel so that we can get back to those fundamentals and see where our faith really should lie and how it doesn't fail us. I'm going to be looking at the book of Romans today. I'm going to be looking at Romans chapter 3 and the foundational truth that we have redemption in Christ. We are justified in Christ. We need to be righteous, and we don't see much of it. What does God do? He gives us righteousness. Let me read from Romans chapter 3, beginning in verse 21. But now the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law, although the law and the prophets bear witness to it, the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe. For there is no distinction, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God and are justified freely, and are justified by his grace as a gift through the redemption that is in Christ Jesus, whom God put forward as a propitiation, and that's a sacrifice that atones wrath or appeases wrath, by his blood to be received by faith. This was to show God's righteousness, because in his divine forbearance he had passed over former sins. It was to show his righteousness at the present time, so that he might be just and the justifier of the one who has faith in Jesus. Then what becomes of boasting? It is excluded. But by what kind of law? By a law of works? No, but by the law of faith. For we hold that no one is justified by faith apart. For we hold that one is justified by faith apart from works of the law. Or is God the God of the Jews only? Is he not the God of Gentiles also? Yes, of Gentiles also, since God is one who will justify the circumcised by faith and the uncircumcised through faith. Do we then overthrow the law by this faith? By no means. On the contrary, we uphold the law. God justifies. What exactly does that mean? What does it mean that we are justified by God? Well, it means we are approved. We're declared right. We're declared good. This makes sense when we understand and remember that we're made in the image of God and we're designed to reflect his glory, his righteousness. But when we're assessed, we are found lacking. At least, maybe I shouldn't speak for you, but for me, I fall short of that. And therefore, because I'm not really in accord with my design, I'm rightly rejected. I'm rightly deserving of judgment. And then there's that wonderful word in verse 21. But now the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law, although the law and the prophets bear witness to it, the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe. There's no distinction. Our relationship with God consists of many parts. There's the actual dynamics. There's the relational dynamic, there's our nature, but we also have a standing before God, how God sees us. And our standing before God has two components. One might be debt, and the other credit. There's the negative aspects of the balance sheet, the red, and the positive sides being in the black. Now, it's well known that Jesus pays the debt. He gets us out of the red by his mercy. His death on the cross wipes out that red. But what about being in the black? It's not enough to be out of the red and at zero. We need a positive righteousness. And that righteousness is given to us. The righteous life of Jesus lived is credited to us. In Christ, God considers you perfect. Oh, it's unbelievable. It's hard to wrap our heads around it. But in Christ, God considers you as living the kind of life Jesus did. Now, how do we have access to this standing? By faith. Verse 28, for we hold that one is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. It's not our efforts. We get it by faith. We're forgiven our debts. We are credited with the righteous life of Jesus, and we're declared right before God by faith. And faith is certainly knowing certain things, but then affirming them and trusting them. We need to live in that truth. We need to experience it. We need to, in a strange way, experiment with it in our lives. When we bump up against our failings, how are we going to respond? Do we direct agitation towards our accusers? Do we seek to discredit them? Do we deny the accusations? Are we desperately seeking to be vindicated? Just this past week, I had a small, not a big deal incident in our home. Our puppy suddenly seemed lethargic, and it was obvious he was having some stomach pain. And my daughter asked me, "Hey, Dad, did you leave one of the trail mix snacks out?" She'd seen me eating one earlier, and in those snacks are M&Ms and raisins, very bad for puppies. And I confess, I started to ask the question, is this a veiled accusation? Why does she think that I screwed up? And this is a common unspoken progression in our minds, and it could lead us to respond in a terse and agitated defense of self. Dad, did you leave the trail mix snacks out? No! But if we have enough space to think upon our justification, to really believe that it doesn't matter if I'm being accused or not, I can respond in a thoughtful and caring way. Let me think about that. Did I leave it out? I don't think so. But let me look for an empty packet. There might be one out. It turns out that my daughter had fed the puppy some fruit earlier in the day, and he got some gas from it. Wasn't my fault. It was her fault. Not that it really matters, right? We're justified not by our actions, but by Christ's mercy. And in trusting my approval before God, not seeking to establish my own righteousness, but trusting His, it helped me actually do the right thing. Verse 31. Do we then overthrow the law by this faith? He's just saying, basically, does grace mean we don't have to do anything that the law asks us to do? Are we overthrowing the law? By no means. On the contrary, we uphold the law. Here's the application. Quit trying to prove yourself, to defend yourself. Trust in Christ's vindication of you, and it will give you the peace of mind to actually do the right thing. This is the gospel. Believe it. Blessings on you all.